You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. Now again, Catholic Chicago.
Welcome to another episode of Diakonia. I'm Deacon Jim Norman, Vicar for Deacons with the Archdiocese of Chicago. Diakonia is the Greek word for service and the root word for deacon. It is a show by deacons, but not about deacons, although we've got 3 deacons here today, and we're delighted that they're all here, both here with me. Deacon Dave Brensick, who you know, I'll let Deacon Dave introduce himself.
Jim, I'm an associate director for the diaconate office, and I minister at Holy Guardian Angels Parish in Brookfield LaGrange Park.
And we've got Deacon Christopher Weiland here with us, who is the director for campus ministry at Bennett Academy. And we're here. Deacon recently led a group of students to World Youth Day. And so we're delighted to have him here to share the experience of World Youth Day through his eyes, through his students' eyes, and for us as well, so that we could take that back and benefit from it in our own parish communities. We begin, Christopher, welcome.
Thank you.
With us. And if I want to just encourage people, in an upcoming episode, Christopher will be with us talking about his role in campus ministry, and he does it with such great joy and passion. So please look for that episode here at Catholic Chicago. I'll let Dave begin.
So, Christopher, just to start out, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, some of your background?
Sure. I've been married to my amazing wife for 31 years. I have 2 wonderful daughters, Kirby and Murphy, who recently graduated from college and are starting their careers now this fall. I had a great career working in new product development engineering and business leadership for 31 years for some of the largest corporations in the world, and loved that. But in 2012, I got the call to pursue the diaconate and started formation in the fall of 2014 and was ordained in 2018 and celebrated my 5-year anniversary as a deacon this spring.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My home parish is Our Lady of Perpetual Help in Glenview. We're a big parish, lots of ministry activity, a big grade school, and beyond my involvement with liturgy at the parish, I also work with adult formation. I help to support our youth ministry, our ministry of care. But probably most importantly is kind of just my ministry of presence, being present for people as they go through life, being at the parish, and being available to be part of my parishioners' lives as they unfold around the parish. I also work with the Mission of Our Lady of the Angels in West Humboldt Park, helping them with their general food distributions, their community outreach programs, liturgies, and just an extra hand for maintenance and construction around the property there in West Humboldt Park. But about a year ago, as you noted, I stepped away from my prior career and went into full-time ministry as the director of campus ministry at Bennett Academy out in Lisle, the western suburbs of Chicago.
So we're at World Youth Day. We're going to talk about that today. How do you prepare, number one, yourself as director of campus ministry for World Youth Day, and then how do you prepare the students?
Well, first is you have to have students to go. So there's an understanding of what World Youth Day is, and then being able to communicate that out to the students and the families. So the first step in that process was for me to really gain a full understanding of what we were going to be experiencing at World Youth Day, where World Youth Day this year was going to be held, an amazing venue of Lisbon, Portugal, and then to start to build that interest in the community. It's a big commitment from our students and from our families, so kind of getting that information out there and starting to help them understand what they would experience in attending World Youth Day. From there, there's a lot of planning. I was very blessed. Bennett Academy worked with a pilgrimage organization called Verso Ministries out of South Bend, Indiana. They were started to bring people to World Youth Day. So that is not the only thing they do, but that is definitely one of their focuses. And I had their help and guidance. This is my first World Youth Day. I had never been before. I hadn't attended myself. So I needed a lot of guidance and support, and they were there to give me that help and to start to prepare our students both for what they would experience in a different culture. Most of them were traveling outside of the country by themselves for the first time in their life. Many for the first time, period, outside of the country. So this was an exciting opportunity for them to experience a new culture. So their first thing that we had to do was kind of establish that there's a difference between a pilgrimage and a vacation. And in a vacation, we're really focused on just what it was we were going to experience. But with a pilgrimage, we had to start the process of establishing the idea that it wasn't so much about what they were going to experience, but what the experiences they were going to have were going to do to them. Mm-hmm. And how they had to go into it with the mindset of, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to experience a lot of new things out in the world. But we had to always do it in a reflective manner. What is the impact that's going to have on me, in my faith, in my life, in my view of the world? So that was the first hurdle of working with the students, was to get them to a point to understand it's not just a vacation, but that we have to go into it with an open mind and an open heart to what God wants to do in our lives through this pilgrimage. There was a lot of physical preparation required. What do we bring? How do we prepare for our night outside, for the vigil and the missioning mass at the end of World Youth Day? How do we prepare for the miles and miles of walking and touring that we were going to do? Maybe we didn't quite expect the warm weather that we had. We did not see one drop of rain our entire trip to World Youth Day, but it would have been nice to see a cloud occasionally. So we had temperatures upward of 104 degrees when we were outside for more than 24 hours in that kind of heat. So there was the preparation of, bringing water bottles, bringing, snacks that we could use to keep our energy up and keep our hydration up. So there was a lot of planning around that. There was also the fun of realizing that as the world youth comes together, they want to engage each other. And one way that the youth engage each other at World Youth Day is to trade.
I had heard that.
So we had a lot of conversation about what is it that we could trade. And we investigated a lot of things, and we settled in to something that was both to share our identity as a school at Bennett Academy and to share the fact that we come from the United States. So we had these small dog tags made, and on one side had the Bennett Academy crest and our name in Chicago, Illinois, and on the back side had the American flag. And this was something that gave the students the opportunity to approach others, to say, hey, I have something to share with you, and to start that conversation. So there was a lot of fun in figuring out what it was we were going to trade, and some of my chaperones stepped in and helped find a company that could make the small dog tags. So they traveled well, and they were quite unique. And people would see them. We hung them on our backpacks. We hung them on our belt loops. And people would see them and then approach that you have something to trade. So the students were able to meet people from all over the world through that. We prepared for an understanding that everything wasn't going to be in English. You had to kind of go into it with the understanding that some things would be in English. Some things would be in Spanish, Portuguese. We went out. We bought small transistor radios so that we could tune into the radio stations that would be broadcasting the translations of what was going on. So when the Pope spoke to the youth, he spoke in Spanish. And so we listened in English. And I said at one time, it was a real throwback. It looked like we were waiting for the astronauts to land on the moon. We were all huddled around this radio outside listening to the English translation of what the Pope had to say. So there were lots of little technical preparations like that. And then there was the idea that we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how this is all going to come together in the end. So preparing ourselves for the unknown, just being open to being flexible and going through the events and being present in the events and not being overly concerned about what's going to happen next, but to live in the moment of that event.
And Chris, I was going to ask, it may be presumptuous. Here we are, 3 deacons, and you said, I've never been to World Youth Day. I've never been to World Youth Day. Dave, I don't know if you've ever been.
Nope, never been.
So there probably are members of our audience who've never been to World Youth Day. What is World Youth Day?
So World Youth Day was started by Pope John Paul II. And his vision was to bring the youth of the world together, to show them that they have a voice and a place in the Catholic Church. So every 3 to 4 years, a venue is identified and a series of activities is put together for the youth of the world. So the youth come from all over. I think the largest delegations this year came from Spain, from Italy, from France, from the United States. We're the largest in numbers. I don't think we were always the largest in voice. So I think the South Korean delegation was very present and very loud in their response to World Youth Day. And in coming together, it's the opportunity for the church to listen to the youth, as well as the youth to be missioned by the church to go forward. And that was one of the key messages that Pope Francis was bringing to the students this year at World Youth Day, was that you are not the future of the church. You are the church today. You matter. Your opinion matters. And what you do for the church matters. So, it was very much in the vision of John Paul II that, the youth was being empowered through what they were experiencing and what they were being taught during your World Youth Day. So World Youth Day has a series of big events. So the big events were the opening Mass. And then the next day there was the papal welcome.
Okay, we're going to take it up there after the break.
Do you have an old bicycle that's not being used? Consider donating it to Catholic Charities Veterans Bike Project of Lake County. Skilled volunteers are refurbishing bicycles to make them safe and ready to be used by veterans to get to and from their new places of work. We also gratefully accept financial contributions that are used to purchase bike helmets and other safety accessories. Our veterans have faithfully served the United States, and now it is our privilege to serve them. For more information on the Veterans Bike Project of Lake County, call 847-782-4219. That's 847-782-4219.
I can't imagine myself going into any other school.
Our school fosters growth by being a backbone to our family.
My kids are incredibly well-rounded. I see a lot of kindness in them on a daily basis.
One of the things I think Catholic schools do well is personalize the learning experience. You can hear joy in the classrooms.
I feel that I'm happy that I am in this kind of school.
Our school communities provide students with academic excellence and character education in a supportive and stable learning environment. Come see for yourself. Visit archchicago.org/findaschool.
Welcome back to Diakonia. We're here with the Director of Campus Ministry for Benton Academy, Deacon Christopher Weiland. You were sharing with us the key events of World Youth Day, so please go ahead.
Yeah, so the week officially starts with the opening Mass. And for me, that was the biggest Mass I'd ever partaken in, 400 to 450,000 people. Probably somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 clergy members vested for that Mass. The next day, we had the papal welcome. So the Pope was in town. So he came, everybody gathered back at that park. Where I thought 450,000 was a lot of people, now the Pope is there. Now that crowd is 750 to 800,000 people. The energy and the excitement that Pope Francis brought to that crowd was amazing. To see young people climbing trees to get a view, very much a Zacchaeus moment, to see that much excitement and to see the energy and to hear the roar of the crowd flow through like a wave as the Pope came through was very exciting. And he made an opening statement to the youth of the world and led a prayer service that evening. Then the next day we had Stations of the Cross. An amazing depiction of the Stations of the Cross. Each year at World Youth Day, the host country presents the Stations of the Cross in their own way. So it's not traditional. It can be interpreted in many different ways. And this year they had an amazing stage. where they unveiled these large banners with each station of the cross. And then at the end, the banner makes an image of the journey of Christ through the world. So it was an amazing depiction of the Stations of the Cross. Each day starts with what they referred to this year at World Youth Day as Rise Up Sessions. So Rise Up Sessions were opportunities for catechesis. So in the morning we would get up, we would make a small pilgrimage out to a park where we had an English-speaking Rise Up session. So we were there with other English-speaking countries or countries where maybe their language wasn't individually represented, so English was the best language for them to attend in. We heard from cardinals from the United States. We heard from the Archbishop from Sydney spoke to us. Their messages were mixed in with youth from Portugal who was there to help the students hear a message of evangelization and missioning. They had witness talks of other students and things that they've been doing in service that have changed their communities and their lives. So those Rise Up sessions happened each morning. Then the culmination is this year 1.6 million people, mostly teenagers and young adults, made the walk out to a beautiful setting along the river there in Portugal for the vigil service and then spending the night and then the missioning mass of the Pope the next morning. And that was an amazing experience. 1.6 million people celebrating the faith, celebrating Christ in their life, putting up with some hardships to do that. 1.6 million people. The venue was 1.5 miles deep, right? But they did an amazing job there in Lisbon. They broke the venue up into segments, and each segment had speakers and a large jumbotron. Everybody could see what was going on. The dancing, the cultural sharing, just something simple like my students sharing licorice with the Spanish students next to us, right, that they were so excited to see, and then that starts a conversation. So having those experiences, that opportunity to have over 10,000 vested priests and deacons for that missioning mass on that last day, to see the distribution of the Eucharist to 1.6 million people in an individual event. The Eucharist was consecrated and brought out to each segment the night before. And then there was a tent in each segment, and each segment had adoration in that tent all night long. And it was a beautiful sight to see. The story that was built around the vigil service, and they brought the icon of Mary and the cross in on a boat off the river. And it was really a moving experience to see that. Then there's all the little things, the parties that go on in the streets where teenagers are sharing their music and their dance and their culture. They have stages set up for formal, but they have informal sharing in the parks. Was just a phenomenal experience. And then the beauty of Lisbon and touring the churches that had been set up and sponsored by different countries around the world, and going out to see the risen Christ, the statue that overlooks the city, was all amazing experiences. And getting to meet the people of Portugal, such a friendly, welcoming group.
From the students' perspective, your students' perspective, what were their highlights? What was most impactful for them?
First thing I hear over and over from them is the idea that they're not alone, that the world is full of people their age who believe in Christ, believe in God, love and are passionate for the Catholic faith, that no matter how much pressure they experience from society around them on a daily basis, they now know they're not alone, that there are millions of youth out there that have this same desire to grow closer to Christ and to celebrate the faith that they share in the Catholic Church. That is the number one thing that I hear. The opportunity that they had to interact with the youth from the world and to hear what life is like in their church, in their faith life, and just in their culture, right? And the challenges that they face in their culture, and learning the similarities and the differences, and kind of growing closer through both, through being similar and being different, was an amazing experience for them. I think they also talk a lot about the Pope's message, actually taking the time to listen to what the Pope had to say. And I would go out each morning and reread what he had said. So just in case I was distracted by something while we were in the park listening on the radio, I was kind of curious. And it was really exciting this year to read that the Pope pushed the script out of the way. And for the first time in many years, he just spoke from the heart. And his message was empowering. He wanted them to know they're not a number. They are unique. God has created them unique. And each of them being unique means they are unique in the church. And it is that uniqueness and those gifts and talents that they have to actually bring forward the church. So, they spoke a lot about that message of being empowered.
And how did World Youth Day impact you?
I have a new respect for the energy that the Pope can bring to people. And, we don't follow a church of the Pope, we follow a church of Christ. But in our church, there are figures that bring energy and bring a sense of unity. And that's what I experienced with the encounters with the Pope, was that he was very unifying. He was very encouraging of the youth and very empowering to what he expects of them going forward. The moment that really kind of opened my eyes was at the vigil. 1.6 million people outside, singing, dancing, celebrating, having an amazing time. And in a moment, the Archbishop brought out the Eucharist in the monstrance. And within 4 or 5 seconds, 1.6 million people dropped to their knees. There was complete silence. You could hear the birds. You could hear the water from the river lapping up on the shore. You could see the reverence in the entire crowd. And in that moment, if there was ever any doubt in my mind, I knew Christ is present in the Eucharist. Because there's no other way, there's nothing else in this world that can take 1.6 million people and make them silent in an instant, but the real presence of Christ.
Amen.
And it gives me chills just thinking about that moment, about seeing the peace and the tranquility that Christ could bring into the world. And I took part as a vested deacon in that Mass the next morning. And to do that, I had to get up early and to walk through 1.6 million people sleeping peacefully next to each other was amazing.
That is a wonderful place to conclude this episode. As you were describing the events, as you were describing the experiences, I think both Dave and I were transported there and elevated spiritually. I hope that happens for the audience that listens and watches. We want to thank you for the wonderful work you're doing, the outstanding work you're doing at Bennett Academy. Thank you for your ministry. Thank you for your joy. We so appreciate you and all that you've done. And I'm sure we're speaking on behalf of the youth and your parish community as well. So thank you again.
Thank you. It's been a joy to join you guys.
Thanks, Christopher.
Are you willing? Can you be baptized like I have been baptized?